Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the wonderful Amandalee Sparks. And today we are going to talk about how owning your energy leads to the life that you want, especially as a highly sensitive person or an empath. And I, for one, cannot wait to dive into this topic. So thank you so much for being on my show and for talking about this, Amanda. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm very excited. I love to talk about all this stuff.
Yes, exactly. Me too. So how does owning your energy lead to the life you want?
Well, it goes through a couple of different ways, but part of what I want to touch just briefly before is how not owning your energy doesn't get you what you want. So,
That is a very good place to start.
yeah, because I have an example of this in my own life. So when I was born, I had all my kind of abilities open and I could see energy and things. A lot of kids are like this. And then when I was about 5 years old and heading to school, because I have a January birthday, so I was a little on the younger side first going to school. Some kid said something like, "That's weird and you're weird." And I didn't want to be weird. I wanted to fit in. And so I shut all of this part of me off and lived without it
Mhm.
for like 25 years without actively because I remember this because my mom used to tell me stories of how she and I would play with energy and things. She was just kind of stepping into her own spirituality. And so I mean I lived an all right life, but I always felt like I didn't belong and like I was just kind of I was a very shy, very quiet
Mhm.
person growing up. And my cat has just come to join us and be really adorable. So what happened is leading up to my 30th birthday, I was like, there's something missing. There's something missing. And I couldn't see it in the externals. I was renting a nice house. I had a fun boyfriend, good car, an all right job, and I couldn't tell what it was. And then I went on a journey to kind of discover that. And I discovered a book on Reiki. And when I read it, because I love books, I read this book on Reiki and I'm like, oh my God, I got to learn this. And that was like my springboard back into spirituality stuff. I took about just under 2 years to kind of become a Reiki master, open up my ability, start to trust my intuition again. And I've been on this journey ever since. And it's been, I think 12, 13 years, somewhere like that now.
Yeah, I recognize totally what you're saying, and I think, like you said, it's as children we are born into this world, I believe, perfect. We have natural gifts. We are very open. We are very confident. We don't have fears like I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy, but we also usually have power. So I had always had the gift of knowing, and I knew things that I had no business of knowing, but they were spot on, and that scared people.
Yeah.
People, especially my family members, were scared of the things that I knew that they couldn't figure out how I knew. And then they were like, ooh. And then in school, they would tell me things like, Indy, you're weird or you're strange. I got picked on a lot. I got bullied a lot. And I felt weird and strange. And for the longest time, I seriously thought there was something wrong with me. And that makes us change ourselves into a version of us that we think people will accept, or that they won't find weird, or that they want to be friends with, or whatever reason we as kids consciously but mostly unconsciously come up with in order to fit in, to belong, because that is a big desire for so many children, right? To fit in, to belong, to have friends, to be part of the group, to not be the outsider, to not be the odd duckling or the odd one out. And we tend to be that when we are born more sensitive into this world. Is that also your
Yes.
experience?
Yes, for sure. Like I didn't know that I was empathic until I read it in a book. And I was like, I had a moment of like, oh my God. Oh my God. Because I was always my mom used to call it a soft soap. Like I would cry at anything because it was just so, and I didn't realize growing up because no one was talking about this kind of stuff really, that what I was feeling, what I was crying for were not mine, right? This is a
Mhm.
big thing with being empathic, which just means that you feel things that are that other people are there. So it's like we have the physical senses and then we have the non-physical senses. And people who are empathic or highly sensitive are often tuned into more than just their physical senses, more than the average person, right?
Yeah.
So discovering that I was empathic and highly sensitive changed so much in my life because I suddenly realized I had more control than I was letting myself be.
Hmm.
When I acknowledged, oh yeah, okay, so I'm highly intuitive and highly sensitive, and it's all these energies out there that I can really like feel that other people are not paying attention to, and that's okay. And so I started to kind of take back my power in a way in my life. I started saying, no, I don't want to watch these scary movies because scary movies impact me for months afterwards with imagery and things that are just not helpful, right? And that's really how stepping into my own power has started to really shift my life so much for the better, because you learn that you can say no and it'll be okay.
I recognize fully what you're saying. I never knew I was it either. And for me, it was also about 25 years later when I ended up in my burnout that by accident I discovered that I'm an HSP and an empath, because my boss at the time told me, yeah, but you are an HSP because you're exactly like my wife, and my wife is an HSP, so you must be one. And I didn't even know if I should be insulted because I had no clue what he was telling me, or I thought, are you calling me a name or something? So I decided to Google it, and I'm not a big fan of boxes and labels, and I don't like people being labeled or being put in a box, but discovering that I'm a highly sensitive person and discovering that I'm an empath, I see them as little puzzle pieces. And all of these pieces make up me. And with each puzzle piece that I discover, finding out that I'm an HSP and an empath, it felt like I came home to myself. Things that I didn't understand about myself, like what you were telling me, I could be normally happy, cheerful myself, and then the next moment I could be inconsolably sad and I couldn't stop crying. And my mom would ask me, well, why are you crying? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Were you hurt? No. Did someone call you a name? No. Then why are you crying? I don't know. And it wasn't until I discovered that as an empath and a highly sensitive person, because all highly sensitive people are empaths, that I could take over other people's emotions. And I was apparently feeling my mother's grief and my mother's sadness, and I was crying her grief without knowing that that was a possibility, because I always assumed, well, I'm feeling it, right?
Yep.
So if I'm feeling it, it must be mine. I never knew that it was possible to feel something of somebody else's. So I also didn't understand big parts about myself or why I knew the things that I knew, but I was sure I knew them, but it always made people just back away. And they would tell me, oh, but you're far too sensitive and you really need to grow a thicker skin and stop taking everything so personally.
Yep. Yep. It's such an interesting thing. And um oh goodness, my thought just flew out of my head. But oh yeah, so what I wanted to say here was the recognizing that you can feel things that are not yours is one of the biggest things. And I find also, because a lot of the clients that I work with are highly sensitive and empaths, and that also don't know it, more and more are starting to know it as the information gets out there, right? Which is wonderful. But it's like the biggest kind of lesson is too strong a word, but the biggest kind of learning I find for us is about the boundaries, because our boundaries are so porous because we are naturally feeling things of other people. So we have to take a moment and go, okay, I'm feeling, is this mine? And then, oh, this isn't mine. Okay, it's not mine. I don't need to feel this gunk. I can let it go away and I can come back into who I am.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the biggest things we need to learn is distinguishing between, is this mine or is this somebody else's?
Yep.
Because the moment you determine it's not mine, and if we take the example of me crying, if I cannot tell you why I'm crying and I have no clue where it's coming from, then it's 95% sure it's not mine. Because if it was mine, I knew what I was crying about or why I was crying. So that's usually how you can determine it. But if you can determine if it is mine or not mine, when it's not yours, you can just let it go. Because if it's not
Yep.
yours, you don't have to do anything with it. If it's not yours, you don't have to go looking for the cause or taking away the cause, healing the cause, solving the cause, because it's not yours and you cannot heal or solve or take it away. That only works if it's yours. So that was just a huge eye opener, but it goes further than just that, right? Because for the longest time in my life, I felt like a doormat. And
Mm.
everybody was just walking all over me. And I was always there for other people. And as soon as you were just nice to me, I called you my friend.
Yep.
And I would die for you, basically, because that's the person I am. And a lot of people abuse that.
It's true. I think they might not even know how they're using it because they're just in their interface with the world is so different than ours. But yeah, I called myself a chameleon. Like I would, growing up, turn into who I thought the person with me wanted me to be, and I would become that. Otherwise, I didn't really say anything. I was just kind of wallflower girl, right?
Mhm.
And it was really, it's been really incredible, especially in these last few years, as I have discovered more and more the limiting thoughts that I've got and are shifting them into success thoughts. Because for most of my life, I felt like I had some alien family and they dropped me off on this planet and flew away without me, right? I'm like, I don't belong here. And learning about kind of non-physical things and law of attraction and all this stuff, recognizing we all belong here and the variety of experiences is so important to um the experience of life here, right? If we're all the same, we would be so boring.
Yeah.
And so telling myself and stepping into the I belong, I can now confidently walk into a place and strike up a conversation with someone if I feel like it's supposed to just be like, oh God, don't talk to me. I don't know what to say. Don't talk to me. Right. So it's a wonderful way to really step into. And if you've a few people I've talked over the years have had the kind of alien dropped you off and flew away kind of feeling. So if that was you, that stepping into that I belong energy is so powerful and will change a lot.
I love that you're sharing that, because for a long time I called myself the coach for intuitive, ambitious aliens. Didn't understand that. That's why I changed it eventually. But people like you will probably understand immediately what that means.
Yep.
Because I always thought that, well, I think I'm from the milkman or something, or dropped on this planet, because I'm so different from everybody else. The way I look at things is different. The way I respond to things is different. The things that I find important are usually not what other people find important. The way I treat other people is usually not the way I've been treated back. So
Mhm.
to feel like an alien, and what you're saying is true. I had a version of Barbara for when I was with my friends. I had a version of Barbara for when I was with my family. I had a version of Barbara for when I was at work. I had a version of Barbara for when I was doing my yoga lessons or whatever it was, my studies. All these different versions of myself that I thought were what that specific group wanted me to be or expected
Mhm.
me to be. And I did my best to, well, people please.
Yep. Yep. People please, which can lead to a lot of doormat stuff, as we mentioned before. Yep. And it's so fascinating how, because we are the power in our own life, but we tend to, especially as highly sensitives, give it away to other people because we can feel their stuff, their feelings, their approval, their disapproval, particularly. And so when, as a young child, when you feel the kind of disapproval of the parent, and it might not even be disapproval of us, it might just be general disapproval as we get older. And I'm like, yeah, I got a lot of general disapproval with life that shows up every so often, right? So, but as a highly sensitive child, when you feel that, you take that so personally, like they don't love me, I have to stand on my head so that they'll love me and I'll belong, right?
Exactly. And it also has to do with society, right? Because if you look at it, about 20% of the world population is highly sensitive or empathic, and 80% is not. So what that means is that 4 out of the 5 people that surround you don't think like you, don't act like you, don't talk like you, don't believe like you. So if you compare yourself to others, which we often do, then you're the strange one. And the rest of the world in general makes us feel like there's something wrong with us, that we are the one that needs to change in order to fit in. So we do our best to do so. And then on the other hand, we're also perfectionists and we raise the bar really high, but especially for ourselves, as
Yes.
things that I would still accept from a friend, like we were supposed to grab a drink or go to dinner, or some appointment that we made. And if my friend calls up and tells me, I'm very sorry, but I'm sick and I can't make it this evening, I would be like, oh yeah, no, sure, and rest up and make sure that you're feeling better and we will just move it and no problem, right? But if I have an appointment, or I had, because I've changed this behavior, but when I was younger, if I had an appointment with someone else, I didn't feel like I could cancel. I felt they were counting on me, and we had made an appointment, and only if I was really dying or something really, really serious, right, that you couldn't actually physically not go, then I would cancel. But otherwise I would sort of force myself to go. And I see that happening with a lot of us, because, well, we are afraid of what other people might think, what other people might do, how they might judge us. Maybe they will never invite us again. Maybe they will be really disappointed, and all types of behavior along those lines that make us not cancel when we really should have canceled, because that would have been in our best interest.
Yep, I find that as well, especially when I first kind of took my business online. I did a lot of that kind of giving away free appointments, and a lot of people wouldn't show up and wouldn't even cancel. So then you'd be sitting here on the other end and just stood up, and you're like, it's so easy for us to take that so personally. You didn't like me, and really, they forgot, right?
Or something came, but then again, I am the type of person that I am aware of the appointments that I have, and I am aware that, except when it's not in my calendar. If it's not in my calendar, I cannot be held responsible, because then I don't know that I'm having a. Very
Yes.
sometimes that happens, but in general, I am aware of my calendar. I'm aware of my appointments, and I cancel now when I feel like I cannot make it, or something's come up, or it can even be late night. I had an appointment with someone else to record another episode like this, and I came home and I already had the beginnings of a migraine when I got in the car. And by the time I came home, it was a full-blown migraine. And half an hour later, I was supposed to record an interview like this. And I said, I'm so sorry, but when I have a migraine, I'm not inspirational, and I cannot be attentive, and I'm not in the right mindset and the right energy to do this interview. So I
Exactly.
have to cancel.
I think it's so important that we tune into ourselves and discover how we're feeling, because not only is this our intuitive guidance based on our emotions, right? But how we can best interface with people. It's that whole, I've noticed this pattern in myself. I mean, I am technically an energy healer, but in some of the people I work with as well, where it's like we just give and give and give until we exhaust ourselves. But what we need to learn to do is to fill our cup by doing like metaphorical cup, right? Teacup and tea saucer. So if we fill our cup and then it overflows, now we can give from the overflow, and we're in a good state. We're not in a state of a migraine. We can be our best selves and give our best selves to the people that we are with, because they shine when we do that too.
Yes, exactly. And it starts also with proper self-care. And somewhere along the lines, we have learned that when you think about yourself, like the situation I was describing, I cancel because I have a migraine, and you could perceive that as being egoistical. Other people have booked time with you, and they had counted on that appointment, and maybe they will be upset, and you canceling is very selfish. For a long time, I thought I was being selfish if I did that. And a lot of people that come to me think among similar lines, but taking really good care of yourself is not selfish. It's mandatory, because if I go ahead with the interview with my migraine, I will be squinty, I will be not focusing, I will not be inspirational, I will not ask the right types of questions, I will not be a good conversation partner, and then the episode that we have recorded will not be inspirational.
Yeah.
People will stop watching after a couple of minutes. That would also not be fair to my guest. So in the end, by thinking of myself and by being kind to myself, and honoring my limits in what is possible, you as a guest also benefit from that decision, because, and it wasn't you in this case, but we recorded the episode at a later time, and then it's a nice, flowy, energetic exchange that really inspires people, and gives them insight that otherwise would not have happened.
Yeah, it's so amazing the difference of what when you create something from a feeling good place as opposed to an I'm so tired that I just can't do what I should be doing this thing. So it's such a difference in the creation and the distribution of it out into the world, because most of us are putting things to the world these days, right? So it's a fascinating study, especially as you see it in yourself, and you know you need to fill your cup, and you know you need to have breaks between calls or whatever it is that makes you feel good, or only so many calls in a day. I've discovered through trial and error that not too many calls makes me exhausted, and now I need a day recovery kind of a thing, right? So it's important to discover these things for yourself and take that, like, have enough belief in yourself that you are meant to feel good to do the steps that you need to do so you can perform at your highest level.
Exactly. And that is, like you said, it's a trial and error. And even when you think you figured it out, it can still change.
Yep.
And so at the moment, I am in a schedule where the mornings are mine and I work afternoons and evenings because I work a lot with the United States. And like we just discovered, your afternoon is my evening. I already knew that, but that's how I like to work at the moment. But I've also had times where I worked a lot more, and then I gave myself the Wednesday off, and then eventually I worked Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I had Thursday and Tuesdays off, and now I work Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I have Friday and Thursday off. So you're not stuck on something. You can switch it up, and you just need to try out certain things and then see how it's working for you. I had this period where I was doing a lot of virtual coffees because I love connecting with people, and I was connecting a lot on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I value connections, but also the value that they can give. But that only happens when you meet people. Otherwise, it's just a digital connection with someone you don't know, and you're not going to get to know. So you probably won't remember it when, say, you're in a conversation and someone needs someone with that expertise, because you don't even know that that's their expertise or what their name is. And so I believe in meeting people, but that was every 30 minutes, a new person. 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, and then for multiple hours. And I couldn't do that. But I had to find that out by just doing it.
Yep.
And I started to plan them more spaciously, giving me room. But what then happened was that the conversation was so smoothly, and I think, oh, I still have 15 minutes, so it would go over 15 minutes and still be back to back, right?
Yep.
So it's indeed about getting to know yourself really well, and I call it getting to know your user manual and discover how things work for yourself, and knowing how to organize your day, or how to work with who you are. And I know that even if I plan it roomy, I still go over and end up doing the same thing, but then with longer talks. So I now indeed plan a lot of afternoons free or days free, or, stuff to recover. I go walking in nature every morning to put my head in the right space, to have the right energy. And then I'm ready for talking with people. But these are things that you have to figure out for yourself, usually.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And that's just back to the labels part of the conversation. Like, I'm not big on labels either, except for as a tool of self-knowledge.
Yes.
So discovering that I'm an introvert as far as just how my batteries recharge, because an introvert recharges their batteries by being alone or being with a select person usually, right? So for me, I work from home. I love working from home. I love that there's no other coworkers here with their smells and their talking and their whatever else. And it's wonderful. And knowing that when I go to social situations, I can do this and I can be on, but that it drains my social media really quickly. If you ever played the video game called The Sims, it's been around for a lot of years, like, that was so helpful for me because it gave little bars above their head, and now, oh my God, my Sims got red. What's wrong with them? They need to sleep. Okay. And it's kind of paying attention and using these constructs and things we see in the world and applying them to ourselves and knowing, okay, so yes, I can be social and I can be completely extroverted, but then I need some recoup time, or I can only take so many calls a day, and then I need to go out for a walk, kind of a thing, right? So it's so important to learn these things about yourself and be okay in kind of setting up your schedule in a way that works the best for you, not what other people think you should be doing.
Exactly. When I started my business, I thought a business was from 8 or 8:30, 9 at the latest, until somewhere between 5 and 6, because
Mhm.
that's how I always worked when I was an employee for a business. So I assumed that that was what having a business meant. So I forced myself in that, but I'm a night owl. So I tend to get into my energy around noon, 1-ish.
Mhm.
So anytime before that, I love my mornings for myself, where I can do whatever. And sometimes I need to sleep longer, so I take that time. Sometimes I love doing meditation and yoga, or going for my walk, or sometimes I can even sleep later and go for my walk, because it's the entire morning. But the point is, you need to figure out your thing, and it's also not the same every day. It changes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That depends on how well I slept, how busy I was the day before, how busy I'm going to be that day. And I'm an extroverted introvert, if we go with the label things, or sometimes called an ambivert. So that means that I love going to parties, but I cannot be the center of a party.
Mm.
I go to dance parties. I went to house parties once a month, but I'm always at the edge, where I can really dance and have the space. But it was my overflow valve, right? Dancing, and then just losing myself in the music and dancing everything out, but not in a crowded place, but where I had space to breathe. But when I've been too busy, I'm also a high sensation seeker. So it feels like I have one foot on the gas pedal and one foot on the brake. And when
Mhm.
things become too boring, I need to step it up a bit. It needs to become a bit more interesting and a bit more challenging. And I cannot do every day the same, because that wears me down very quickly. So I need to be stimulated, but I can also become overstimulated fairly quickly. So it's like walking a tightrope. And when I get overstimulated, I need to pump the brakes. And when
Mhm.
that happens, I need alone time, and I need to go alone in the woods. But too much alone time and too much of boring, then I need to go out and dance a party.
Yeah, it's a big thing to discover that whole. I mean, everyone is doing their best in every moment, but some days your best is here, and some days this is all you got to give, right?
Yeah.
So I tell myself and some of my clients where it's like, you're not a robot. You can't put the same output out every day. This is just not how it works. There's variances in sleep, there's variances in the cycles and things like that. And you're doing the best you can, and you got to be gentle with yourself if you when you don't hit your expectations in a day, because we tend to be perfectionists and put really high expectations on ourselves, and being like, it's okay, especially as a business owner, because the to-do list is never ending.
Oh no.
I used to stress me out so bad that I could not get through my to-do list in a day, right? And I've kind of over the years in being in business realized it's okay. It's a never-ending to-do list, and I set myself up for success by, because I'm also a night owl, having an easy morning, nice coffee, nice inspirational things, meditation, mindset journaling, all this good stuff that I do, and then I can come to work and I can be focused for a couple of hours, get the most important thing done for the day, and then move on with stuff.
Exactly. Yes, I am the same, and that's why it's so important to really get to know yourself, because otherwise you will end yourself up in a burnout, or
Mhm.
overwork yourself, and you need to work with the gifts that you have, and your
Yes.
natural inclinations. That's why I hate things like Robin Sharma has the 5 a.m. club, where he
Oh,
promotes that the only way to success is waking up at 5 a.m. Right? That would be
no.
my worst nightmare. I sometimes go to bed at 5 a.m. because then I'm done with my inspiration. But otherwise, you will not find me awake at that time. It's never going to be my wake up time. And so that's why it's so important that you find your thing, and the thing that really works for you, and the methods that work for you, and how you show up best. And that's with everything. That's with your marketing, that's with your
Mhm.
messaging. It's how you show up within your business. It's how you show up within your days. And these are things that you either experience just by falling on your face often enough to make different choices, or by working with someone who helps you discover what your things are, that can give you exercises or questions to think about, or help you contemplate, or whatever it is that you need to do to discover how it works for you.
Yeah, it's so important. And I found as I've stepped more into who I was, especially with my early story, stepping into like Reiki and getting into energy healing and intuition and learning more and more and more about it, how important it is to invite people to have their own experience, not just fit into this box.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like when I don't teach Reiki anymore, but way back when I did, I was like, oh, and with my little class, I'd be like, all right, so this is how I was taught Reiki. This is what I actually do, and this is what I've heard from other Reiki colleagues. So try this, and then try this, and try this, and see what works best for you, because we're all so different, and we have different filters of perception. We have different limiting thoughts running through our heads and all these things. And that's part of what I love about the work I do now at the level that I'm at, where I can look at a client, I can have them talk to me about their marketing and their offer, and I can see because I'm very visual with my gifts, is the energy lined there or is it not flowing? Because we especially as online business people, we get told, this is what you must do to be successful. I made $10,000 in one day, right? This kind of stuff. And we're like, oh my God, if I'm not doing that, then I'm a failure. And I'm like, no, this worked for them. And you can look at their process and take what the piece that works for you and build something that works the best thing for you in your amazing abilities.
Even worse is when they say that they are going to teach you that so that you also get these results and you work your ass off, you implement everything, you ask all the questions, and you're really, really motivated, and the results don't come.
Yep.
And then they tend to tell you, oh, but it works for me, so you're doing it wrong. Further fueling your not trusting in yourself, and you're feeling worthless or not good enough, or like you cannot do anything, and that undermines your trust in yourself. So
Yep.
I love what you're sharing, because that's also what it's about for me. I don't teach people my method. I help them discover their methods, the things that work for them, by starting first and helping them discover the user manual, who they really are, taking away everything, stripping them down to their essence, and then having a strong foundation to build upon, to really discover your way of marketing, your way of being visible, your way of running your business, owning your business. If you need to be a coach, or if you need to do something with groups, or if you just need to stick with online programs, or become a speaker, or work with communities, or maybe be an affiliate marketer. There are so many different options, but not them are suitable for, well, most of them are not suitable for everyone. So it's all about finding your thing, your type of business, your niche, your way of working. And I love that I am a multi-potentialite, which means that I'm very well skilled in a lot of different things, and that you can switch between the things and meet people where they need to be met and offer the help that they actually need.
Yeah.
For the longest time, and that's, I think, how our society works, is that I've been told, well, no, you need to do one thing for one target audience, one specific problem, offering one specific result, because that's the way business works. And I honestly, I tried for the longest time, and then I was not having success. I was not getting the results that I wanted. And like you said, I was feeling like a failure. I was debating again what was wrong with me, and why can't it works for everybody. Well, probably not, but that's what it looks like. And
Yep.
you start to lose faith in yourself and your abilities, because on the one hand, you know what you're capable of, you know the value you can bring, you know the difference that you can make, you know what you bring to the table, but somehow people are just not picking up what you're putting out, and that's hugely disappointing and demotivating also.
Yep. It's this entrepreneur journey is the most incredible and the most intense thing I've ever done myself, because there's nothing like it to really pull all your patterns and throw them in your face. Like,
it's by far the best way to really get to know yourself. And you also don't have a choice in it, because you will run into your blocks with, well, in America, it works different than in the Netherlands. So what will be maybe 120 miles an hour, high speed, boof, and it will break you if you do not slow down and start discovering your way. Because we do need specialists. We need people. If I would have to have heart surgery, I would want a specialist in hearts that only works with hearts and that has a high success rate and that knows exactly everything about the thing that needs to be done with my heart, right?
Yeah.
So I would use a specialist. I would not go to a general surgeon that could just as well stitch up my big toe as well as my heart. Would feel less comfortable. But sometimes you do need someone who has a little bit of everything. We have this saying, jack of all trades, master of none. But that's not always true. It's very often not true. And it really depends on the type of person that you are, because it can be your biggest strength. It is mine, and it sounds like it's yours too.
It is. We are very similar. The hilarious thing about that saying is that's only half of it. So the first half is jack of all trades, master of none, and the second half, I've forgotten the specifics, but it's like, so from the first half, it's basically saying, oh, it's better to be a master of one than to know a lot about little things, and the whole of it together gives the opposite meaning. It's better to know a lot about a little about a lot of things than to know only one thing. So a lot of these sayings have, like, the last half has gone away and it's changed its meaning over the years. But that's the whole thing. And the image that I have recently kind of come up with is that, so if you imagine that you are a glowing being of light, so it's like same outline, but you're just glowing so much. And what we do is we have these heavy blankets, we kind of pull them over to us. These are expectations of parents, expectations of teachers, and eventually you're nothing but a pile of blankets, and that glowing, that amazing light that is you is covered. And so this is what I tell my clients. This is the work that we do together, is we take off these blankets so that eventually you are your authentic you, and you know your superpowers, and you know the things that you want to do, the direction you want to head in, and you can go confidently in that direction, and then let the what comes back to you, which is often like friendship and money and success, all these things you want, because as you go confidently in that direction, you get back what you're looking for as well, right? It's fabulous. And I had a lot of coaches in the beginning of my journey trying to, similar to you, focus on this one thing. I'm like, but this is why I'm in my business and not in my old office day job doing the same thing 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, because I wanted to kill myself. I was so bored. I didn't like it. And that's what I love about business, is that I'm multi-passionate and I'm embracing this part of myself more and more. Like, yes, I do this energy coaching, this intuitive stuff. And I also have started to take, because I'm so visual and I can translate it into a physical thing. So I will tune into you and I'll paint your aura and give you a reading on that, or I'll tune into you and make some amazing digital art that you can print on a canvas and put on your wall. And every time you walk by it, it kind of gives you a little bit of a buzz. I'm like, this is who I really am, like in a beautiful thing. So it's like expanding and letting yourself try things, because when you try it, and then you might be like, ooh, nope, didn't like that, that wasn't for me, and it might be like, oh my god, this is amazing and I love it, and now you're embracing more of who you are.
Yeah, I love that you're sharing that, because I am exactly the same. I think in COVID, I started creating pendants that are a combination between gemstones and essential oils with elements of nature in them, sometimes with geometrical shapes, but always combining protection with healing elements, because I feel the power of my gemstones, but I used to put them in my bra.
Yeah,
But
I think
then
a lot of us went through that phase. Yeah.
but then I would forget about them and they would fall to the floor whenever you take it off. And eventually I stopped wearing a bra. So I lost my pockets. And you also don't want to wear 5 different necklaces with 5 different stones, because that becomes a huge thing. So I initially started making them for myself, how I can wear my my gemstones, but also my essential oils in a way that really benefit me. And that turned into a business where I create them for other people, because they also feel the benefits, and they just look really beautiful. And people started to tell me, oh, where can I get one like that? And I was like, well, I made it. Really? And it's embracing all the sides of you, and not being afraid of it. And like you, I've also tried things and I thought, well, okay, I'm glad that I tried it, because this is not me.
Yep. This is not what I thought it would be, and I don't actually like what it is. So, okay, good to know.
And so for me, the biggest benefit of owning your own energy, so that you get the life that you want, is the happiness,
Yeah.
the joy, and the freedom that I'm experiencing. And a lot of people tell me, yeah, but it's a lot more stressful to own your own business than to work in a day job. And I don't agree. Of course, there's stress, there's the stress of having enough income, of clients, of marketing. I'm not saying a business is not stressful, but
Mhm.
this is stress that doesn't get me down. While when I was still working for the boss, the fact that I couldn't develop myself, that I couldn't assert myself, that I was forced into something that was not me, but also the company politics, that was one of the biggest hurdles that I couldn't really get used to. It gave me so much more stress than the stress that I have now that I own my own business, but especially the positives, right? On the other
Yeah.
side, the wonderful talks with wonderful people, the joy, the wonderful clients that I'm helping, but also the mornings that are mine. If it's nice weather and I can just take an afternoon off and enjoy it and sit in the sun with a book and nobody says anything. It's my business, and that's
Yep.
worth so much.
Yep. I really agree. I have a very fast mind, and I was always very bored. And I also found a thing where it's like, so you, as an office worker, here's your 8 hour shift, right? You only really do about 3 hours of work in that shift. The other time, you just got to sit there and look like you're doing work. And I found that so irritating and kind of stupid. I mean, I was in my 20s and stuff, and it was just, but it's always been my kind of quiet rebellion against the world. And I didn't even realize that because at the time there wasn't online entrepreneurs. Like, I never would have thought me, quiet little wallflower me growing up, who was so disconnected from herself, would be this person that I am now online and doing Facebook Lives and card readings and energy healings and all this cool stuff that I can do. And it's just a small part of my day, right? And it's just like the freedom that, and yes, it is the most stressful thing I've ever done is my own business, but it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done as well. The joy of helping someone else realize their stuff and seeing the side effects of this that happened in their life. And it's just like, oh, it's the most incredible thing.
I'm also so happy that you're sharing that about the quick brain, because I have the exact same. And I didn't realize it in the beginning, but I worked in IT for 17 years and eventually I became a Scrum Master. And that meant that we needed to do planning sessions. Those were sessions where we'll break down the big tasks into smaller tasks. And then we need to say how long it will take to complete the task. And then I would pick up a task and it was said that it would take me 8 hours. And if I did it with two fingers in my nose, as slowly as possible, I was still done in 2 hours. And I was like, in the beginning, I thought, oh, they just judged it wrong, right? It's probably it turned out to be less work than they initially thought. But that's not the case, because other people with a similar task would take 8 hours to complete the same task. And that's
Mhm.
when I discovered that I'm so much faster in the exact same tasks with the exact same knowledge as most of my coworkers. That also fueled the feeling weird and strange and very different than everybody else kind of feeling at that moment.
Yeah, and while that is, we're so similar. It's hilarious. I love it. But the while that is a superpower in a traditional workplace, it is a terrible thing because now you've got to pretend to be working, or else if people discover this about you, they pile the work on you.
Yes.
And there's no like reward for getting your assignment done early, right? You've still got to wear out the clock on this, and it's just it's a
That's
terrible.
why I loved working from home, because then I would have done my work, and then I could do vacuuming and the laundry and whatever, right? And it would still look like I worked the entire day, because at the end of the day, I finished what I had to do in that day.
Yeah.
I
How
love
I
that.
really Part of how I really gauge myself when I'm doing things that I love is how my energy is. So when we are being our who we really are and doing the things that we love, this gives you energy. You don't really get tired doing this. You're like, yeah, yeah, eventually it'll go away and you can sleep and whatever. But when we are doing work or tasks or things that we don't like, it makes us so tired.
Yeah.
We resist, and the somewhere before COVID happened, I had to get a part-time job because my business just wasn't quite paying the bills there, right? So, and I had to shift a whole mindset thing there on if I got a part-time job, I failed at my business. I'm like, no, that's not true. You're just doing whatever it takes to keep it going. So I got this part-time job, working in a kitchen for my father-in-law at a thing, and I needed an energy drink to get through that day. It was like a 10-hour shift too, and it was on your feet and totally different from what I would normally do. But I had such negative thoughts about it that it would just make me exhausted.
Yeah.
And when I quit that job, I didn't need energy drinks anymore. I still drink coffee and tea once because I love it, being
Yeah, I
Canadian and
love
it's
it.
cold. But the difference between needing the energy drink to make it through that day and not needing it to get to my regular day, I'm like, oh, this is such an interesting thing to learn about the power we have of resistance. So when you resist a thing, it makes you so tired. But when you're enjoying and the energy's flowing and it's wonderful, you get energized.
Exactly. So I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but sadly, we've come to the end of the time that we have together. So I can imagine that the people that are out there that are watching and that are listening, that they would like to know where they can reach you, where they can contact you. So what way would you want them to reach out? Where can they find you?
Well, I really want to invite them to join me in my Facebook group, and I've given you the link, and it's called Mindset Magic Money. In it, I run monthly abundance games to help. So each day you receive money from the universe. We run manifestation games, and once a month I go live and do card pulls as a kind of a just a thank you for being part of my community thing. So I'd love for you to join that. And my website, if you want to find me, is sparkthejoy.com. The one caveat I have here, because my business is called Spark the Joy, it's been called that since 2016, but there's this lovely lady called Marie Kondo, and her catchphrase is Spark Joy. So if you Google, you get her. But if you go sparkthejoy.com, that's me.
Perfect. And if this went too fast, no worries. I will make sure that the links are below this episode, included in the show notes. So just scroll down and go there. And if you are already there and you loved our talk as much as we loved having it together, then it would be amazing if you would like this episode, if you would subscribe to the channel and make sure that you hit the bell for the notifications. And if you have any questions or things, remarks or whatever, it would be amazing if you would put them into the comments. And if you really, really felt that this was an amazing talk, and I would like to ask you to share it with your audience on social media, because you never know who would really benefit from listening to this talk. So please also share this talk with your audience, because I can guarantee you, you know someone who needed to hear this today. And before we really sign off, I would like to leave you with one question. So my question to you today would be, what is the one thing that you recognized the most after hearing us talk today? The thing that you recognize in your own life? And it would be really amazing if you would share that below here in the comments. So thank you, Amanda, for being here. Thank you for this amazing talk. Thank you, watcher and listener, for being here, for listening, for always showing up and supporting this channel. And I look forward to inspiring you with the next episode on this channel. Thank you for today. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you.